Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, July the 7th. This is 7-7, the big lucky seven, as they like to call it. And we're lucky today that we're chatting with our good friend, Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. Bill, welcome to 7-7.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Lucky numbers.
Yes, that sounds like the name of a club or something, seven
Yeah.
seven, right? Yeah. Well, I wanted to begin with, we always like to celebrate people who make it up there in age, and two of them today who are real personalities. Uh, when I was growing up, two very important people. One is Ringo Starr of the Beatles, who is 85 today. He is. There's only two Beatles who remain, of course, Paul and Ringo. Paul just turned 83, and Ringo is 85. But I was not in the United States, Bill, when they were on the Ed Sullivan Show. We came here about 7 months later after that. But when I got here, of course, everything was Beatles.
Yes.
But that must have been, you remember that, I'm sure.
Oh,
That must have
very,
been
very well.
what a week that must have been in New York when the Beatles came, Bill.
Well, yes, it was. Look, it was obviously a show that was put on. Their arrival in New York to appear on Ed Sullivan. The fact is that most Americans had never heard of the Beatles. It was the young people who knew who the Beatles were. But many of them, the Beatles, the Bugs. This is an extermination thing,
Right.
but they handled their public relations very well. They got the publicity they needed. I remember them arriving at Kennedy International Airport. Let's see what year was this? This
It was
was
February 1964. February
yes.
64. Was there already called Kennedy then?
I don't know. It was called. Well, originally it was Idlewild,
Right.
and then of course after the president's assassination, it was renamed Kennedy
No, I
International
asked you that
Airport.
question because the
Yeah.
assassination had only happened 2 months before, roughly.
Well,
So
yeah.
that was a fast name change.
Yes. Well, I no. The assassination was in 1963.
Right, but they landed in February of 64. That's what I'm saying.
Ah,
That you basically,
it's unlikely that the name change would have occurred that quickly.
well, that's what I thought because
Yeah.
they always referred to it in all the videos and all the documentaries. They always referred to it as, they arrived at JFK,
Mm.
but I didn't realize that it was called JFK that quickly. But that is what it
I
was, what it
yeah,
became, JFK. Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
So that
Uh,
must have been a crazy week, Bill.
Absolutely crazy weekend, and yes, the young people went crazy, and he did appear, or they did
Right.
appear on the Ed Sullivan Show. I don't know if Ed Sullivan knew who they were, but but the publicity was fantastic. It really was. Ed Sullivan was a very big deal in
Right.
television, and you could hear the. I guess they imported a certain number of teenage girls into the TV studio audience because you could hear the
Right. Right. Yes.
and from then on they were known, and of course they built themselves into an institution in music. Even Richard Rodgers, the great composer of American music and of the American musical theater, said that he liked the Beatles, thought they did a
Hmm.
good job. So, and they were in the 1960s was not only one of the leading singing groups, but they were one of the leaders of the, if you want to call it a revolution, and there are good things and bad things, but of the revolution that really gave control of American popular music to young people, and some of the greats were fading away, which was very very sad, and because many of the people coming into music did not really have the talent of the
Hmm.
old guard. They really didn't. I mean, to see wonderful composers fading away and lyricists of the kind who wrote things like My Fair Lady, it wasn't pleasant. But yes, there they were, and now uh, we when we were lived in New York, we lived right next to John Lennon,
Hmm.
right in the building right next to John Lennon. And I remember, of course, the evening he was assassinated, and our block was jammed the whole week
Yeah,
of
I bet.
mourners, young people coming to just see where it happened and talk about him. So, but yes,
You know what's
Ringo.
amazing? What's amazing? Yeah, Ringo, what a name. Um, what's amazing about you mentioned John Lennon's assassination. That's going to be 45 years in November, in December.
Yes.
That's just amazing how that time travels too.
Uh,
But
uh,
there's two stories that I've read, and I don't know if they can be proven, but there's two stories that I've read of how Ed Sullivan found out about the Beatles. The first one is that he and his wife were in London, would have been probably the fall of 1963. They were in London, he and his wife, and they took a car to see a show. And while they were on the show, they noticed all these girls on the streets because something was going on. And Sullivan asked the driver, "What's going on?" And, "Oh, the Beatles are playing." And he said,
ah.
"What's that?" The Beatles. "Oh, this musical group that drives the girls nuts." That's one explanation. And then the other explanation that they were at the airport in London waiting to come back to the United States, and the Beatles arrived around that time. And again, the turnout of girls was immense. And I guess the killer line in both stories, depending which one you believe, is when Mrs. Sullivan turns to Ed Sullivan and says, "Ed, if the girls in London do this, I think they might do the same in New York." And
Ah.
that was apparently when he realized that maybe he should have somebody contact him,
Hmm.
because it's very hard to get into the U.S. market and couldn't.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
the
Yeah.
record companies or the records were succeeding in the UK, but they were going nowhere here. So it took something like the Ed Sullivan Show. So happy number 85 to Ringo. There's another guy that you probably remember, and that's from your days on the Tonight Show, and that's the guy I call the trumpet player, good old Doc,
Doc
who,
Severinsen.
yes, who is 98 years old today.
Yes.
So any memories of him?
Oh, every night. Every night.
Yeah.
He is the last survivor of the main group on the Tonight Show of that era. I mean, John is gone. Ed McMahon is gone. Other members of his band who became notable for being used in sketches, they're all gone. It's only Doc who remains. Yes, 98 years old. His career was really built around the Tonight Show. He was there, of course, every night wearing
Hmm.
unusual clothing. You might remember that he always got
Yes.
jokes about his clothing,
Right.
and weird suits that he would wear. But a terrific musician, really a first class trumpeter. And when the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson went off the air, and the new guy Jay Leno came in, who had his own musicians. Doc went out and toured, and did very well for himself.
Did he have a lot of music success before, or did he just happen to? And I mean, was he a well-known recording artist before the Tonight Show? Do
Yes,
you know?
he was well known as a recording artist. I don't know if the public
Right.
recognized him that much, but certainly within the industry, he was the top musician.
Yeah. I mean, he was a great trumpet player. That much I can
Terrific.
say.
Oh yes,
And he and Carson had great chemistry.
yes, they did. They
That
did.
was the thing that was amazing about that show. All those three had great Ed, Johnny Carson and Doc,
Yes.
had great chemistry between them.
Yes, well, it worked perfectly. Now, of course, Doc was built into a comedy figure because Carson would suddenly look over to him and do a take, as they said, and it
Right.
was about whatever weird suit Doc was wearing that night. But
Right.
the Tonight Show band was a renowned band. It really was. In fact, even Carson would talk about it on the air that how lucky they were to have a band of that quality.
Yeah, they were great. I mean, and the chemistry among those three guys was great. So birthdays here. A couple of people, 85 Ringo and 98 Doc.
Yes,
All right, well, let's get serious. Not that we're not serious, but
yes,
let's get into some of the current events. As you know, there was this terrible tragedy in Texas.
of course.
Two of the young women who were killed or who were found drowned or whatever are close to us, our home, that is, St. Rita Catholic Church and St. Rita Catholic School. And we didn't know him personally, but we're very familiar with St. Rita because when we first got married, that's where we used to go.
Uh,
And our three sons were baptized there. So we're very
give us
familiar.
give us a little geography lesson. How close is that to Dallas,
Well, St. Rita, oh, you mean where the incident happened?
where the incident happened?
Kirk
Yes.
County is probably about 250, 300 miles
Ah,
because it's down it's about 300 miles from Dallas
yes.
on take I-35 going down. And Kirk County is northwest of that. So maybe not, maybe more than 300, but
Ah,
it's called the Hill Country, which is one of the areas in Texas that is booming in
mm,
growth because it's such a beautiful area. I mean,
yeah.
it's just beautiful. There's a lot of water, a lot of recreation, a lot of green, and it's just booming. And that particular area where this incident happened, that school, the Mystic Camp, which is
Hmm.
a girls' camp, that's extremely popular.
Ah,
And in fact, I heard today that the two daughters, the Bush daughters, President Bush and Laura Bush, their daughters came out today saying how much it meant to them because they went there.
hmm.
And apparently, a lot of people would send their daughters there. It was a very popular place. And I know that in our area, there were sometimes groups that would go there, girls that would go there for retreats and all kinds. So it's a beautiful part of Texas, very green, lots of water. The Guadalupe River is really amazing, but nobody expected this thing to rise 30 feet
Yes,
in
yes.
25. I mean that's really, I think that was the killer. I mean,
Well, then, no, this has never happened before in our
no,
in our lifetime, and yes, it rose something like 26 feet in ten
yeah.
minutes, and they were caught completely by surprise. Some of the kids were saved by quick thinking counselors
Mm,
who got them out, smashed windows in the back of the main building there to get the kids out into a nearby high spot. I'm sure we'll learn plenty of stories of heroes who gave of themselves to save as many girls as possible. But it was impossible to get them all out. I mean, that water was up so high and so fast.
right. The one thing that they may want to consider doing after, after they find go through this healing process, the one thing they might want to consider doing is setting up some kind of an alarm system that can go down, the river. Because
Yes.
one of the
Hmm.
problems with the river or that area, as far as a resort, is that they don't have cell phone, and that's one of the attractions actually.
Oh, isn't that fascinating?
Because people can go there on weekends, and especially if you have teenagers, your teenagers are not stuck to the iPhone all
Uh
the
huh.
time. You know what I mean? Uh, so that's one of the attractions, the fact that you can really get away, and not even your iPhone works. I mean,
Well,
you're not. It's not like you're 10 hours away from civilization because
mm,
you're only an hour from San Antonio. I
yes.
mean, so it's not like you're that far. But that's one of the attractions. And one of the things that they're talking about is that maybe they should have some kind of sirens. Because I do believe that a lot of people didn't get the reports that,
Yes, that's true.
yeah. And I think that that's the reason that they couldn't get. I mean, I'm sure that if this director at that camp had known that, because the first reports started coming out an hour and a half earlier, I'm sure that if he had that information, they would have gotten those girls out.
Oh, of
It would
course.
not have been that difficult to put them in a bus and drive 20 miles, and they would have been
Yes.
safe. So,
Yeah. Hmm.
but it's a horrible thing because when you're talking about 9 and 10-year-old girls, 11-year-old girls, and I mean, it's just brutal to think about it, Bill.
It is, and their last moments must have been terrible. I
Oh,
mean, just what what a what a horrible tragedy. All tragedies are horrible by definition, but this one in particular, because it was young people, and
right.
they had no chance of getting out.
That's right. Now, the other thing too is that when something like this happens, there are some tremendous stories of heroism, and you're already seeing it. The National Guard and the Coast Guard have been finding people at great risk. You see these helicopters, and you see these members of the National Guard, I guess Texas National Guard or police or whatever, going into extremely difficult places and discovering people. And that, that always comes with this. It doesn't get the same publicity, of course, as the people who were killed, but it is part of the story as well.
Oh yes.
And then I just saw a story today about a counselor who saved a bunch of young people too. So what a what a terrible way to spend your July 4th. I mean, what a
Of course, and yes, yeah, I thought your idea of a siren was very good, and something that could be go off automatically in the middle of the night. They have those sensors available. I
right.
mean, they because this is not the only area near a river, but they certainly should have had something set up if in an
Hmm.
emergency of any kind where it would just go off and people would get out. But
Right. Well, they
uh,
have stuff like that here in the Dallas area, Bill, Dallas
yeah,
Fort Worth area, because of the tornadoes. I mean, sometimes you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and they got these sirens going off.
yes,
And the
yes,
siren could be 10 miles from here, but you can hear it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and that usually wakes up people. So when you hear that at any time of the day, you realize that there's a threat of a tornado
Mm.
and you better go to a safe place. And I mean, we've done that a few times. I mean, where we all of a sudden go in the bathroom, especially when the kids were little, you go into the bathroom, which is usually the safest place because there's no windows, and you go in there or some other room. So yeah, hopefully they can come up with that, but it didn't fail, Bill. It took 5 minutes before it became politicized.
Oh, of course. Yeah, the cheapest of the politicians immediately tried to blame President Trump.
Yes,
Just awful. I mean, no taste, no class. Immediately to try to say, well, he cut the funding for some of the weather bureaus. It later came out that nothing anywhere near that area was cut.
right.
Uh, but well, he set the tone. No, he didn't. This is something that with what was available at the scene, nobody could have prevented.
No. And even they came out and said that they actually had extra staff
Yes,
for
yes,
the weekend, which is sounds perfectly normal to me. They always have extra police when you have long weekends on the road and stuff like that.
yeah.
So I mean, I think it's just amazing. It reminds me a little bit, this kind of cheap politicization reminds me a little bit of the Uvalde. Remember the Uvalde case when they had the school shooting
Oh yes.
and about 20 kids died, and Governor Abbott is having a press conference and Beto O'Rourke shows up to the press conference screaming and saying that this is because the governor doesn't pay attention to gun control or whatever, that if only
Yeah.
we had gun control, that would have never happened.
Ridiculous.
And that's, this reminded me of that. You know, the families of these little girls don't want to hear stuff like this.
Of course not.
I mean, why would you tell them that they could have been prevented? What a
Yeah.
horrible thing to hear.
Well, these are people who have no class and no taste, and everything is they say is for their own advantage, which whether it is or is not. Uh, uh, but but there we have a political class in this country today that hates the president so much that all good judgment goes out. It just flies right out the window.
Right.
And immediately they started with this that they didn't have the funding they needed. No, apparently nobody ever asked for anything, and the Trump people are the people who are fundamentally responsible for this. It didn't. That argument didn't go very far. But the
No.
fact that they would make it just, I mean, hours after the children were killed, shows what has happened to that group in American politics, that left wing Democratic group, and
Mm.
it's frightening because should they get back into power, they can apply this to almost anything they wish.
Yes, you're right. And the other part too that bothers me is that you don't have somebody in the media interviewing them who says, cut it out. Don't bring that up because you don't have any evidence of this. I mean, it's almost like the person asking the question lets them get away with this.
Oh yes.
And
Oh
that I think is just as bad. I mean, the fact that they would want to, the fact that they would want to politicize it, okay, It happens, unfortunately. But there ought to be people in the media responsible. You know what? Come on. What
Yeah.
evidence do you have of this? I mean,
Yes.
cut that out. We don't need to hear that right now. There'll be plenty of time for that later. So that's the
Yes.
other part that I think the
I
media have a
agree.
lot to do with it. Now, on another topic here, Bill, the president or the prime minister of Israel is meeting with the president today. It's a most unusual meeting, and this is what I mean. They're just having dinner, and to my knowledge, there's not going to be a press conference like they always have. So, what do you think is going on, Bill?
Well, I think whatever is going on is very important. That I think, BB doesn't come to town just to shoot the breeze.
Right.
And there are apparently a number of negotiations on different subjects in the Mid East. Some are dealing with Iran, obviously a very important subject. Iran is still there. The country of
Mhm.
Iran is still there, and
Right.
as somebody said, anything destroyed can be rebuilt, and they're going right on with their programs with no apparent intent to stop them. But now they are the United States has been trying to engage Iran in a new negotiation that would basically put their whole nuclear program out of business, and Iran has refused to negotiate. So I think we can assume that the damage that was done by our raid, the U.S. Israeli raid on Iran's nuclear facility, did some considerable damage, but it's either repairable or replaceable, and they're probably right back at work.
Well, I'm sure they can dig up another base somewhere, maybe make it even deeper if they can. Um, but why do you think that they had to meet in person with all the technology today? I mean, couldn't they have done this by phone or by video? I mean, it seems like the fact that he would come here to meet in person, have dinner with President Trump. I mean, it's not like flying from here to Tel Aviv is a 2-hour flight. I mean,
Yes.
it is a huge flight.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, normally when these prime ministers come, they speak to the Congress and all of that. And this time he's not doing that, not even having a press conference like they normally do, Bill. So it must be something very important that the two of them want to talk person to person.
Yes, and I think there's going to be another meeting, and maybe another meeting with the president after that. I know he's meeting with the president later in the week as well. Yes, there are a number of negotiations going on involving not only the Iran raid and its consequences and what to do with Iran in the future, but involving Gaza, trying to end the war there, trying to set up some permanent mechanism where another war doesn't occur there, and pretty much anything else. I think that there is concern on the part of the administration that the Russians may make a move to get involved in this, which would be disastrous because they'll just do mischief and they won't accomplish anything at all. But yes, Israel, and the United States are very, very close. This president has done more for Israel than any other president, and Bibi is to some degree beholden to him.
Mm, right.
So, I suspect that Trump wanted him here to try to guide him through the whole process in a way that would satisfy America's needs and America's demands. So, I think it is very important.
And as far as I know, he's not meeting any of Congress, as far as I know.
Well, that if he is, he's doing it in this hotel room,
Okay.
and he probably is, privately going to see the big supporters of Israel in Congress and what the next step is going to be, and also national defense issues, equipment issues,
Mhm.
manufacturing things that we all learned from the raid on Iran, and maybe it's a different type of air defense system that ought to be employed next. So these things go to a lot of areas, including, by the way, the subject of oil, which is tended to go out of our vocabulary, but it should be back in our vocabulary because Iran is still a huge producer of oil, and oil is important to the economies of many countries. They don't often have alternatives, and oil is very important to Russia. So
Right.
the Middle East is not only a center of action for the problems that affect people directly and affect governments directly. But the Middle East is important to the rest of the world, and therefore it is important to Russia.
Bill, there was a question today. I caught this for a few minutes. The press secretary was doing that day briefing, and somebody asked her a question: if it would is it being considered to sell these bunker busters to Israel? And I mean
Well,
that's a
yes,
pretty important weapon that we have,
yes, we
and
don't.
I'm sure Israel would love to have it.
Yes, I'm sure they would. That's one weapon we don't sell to Israel, at least to the best of our knowledge. So it's been said and told to the public that the U.S. does not sell the bunker buster system to anyone else, and it's all ours. I'm sure that will come up in the discussion. Israel will probably want to buy from the United States some bunker busters, so that if there's war again, the Israelis will have the ability to use them without our permission.
But flying those bunker busters, look how complicated it was for the United States. The B 2, all the support aircraft to keep that B 2 up in the air, refueling.
Yes.
Because they had to, when Israel attacked Iran, they had to refuel in the air, from what I understand.
Oh, yes. I think some of the B-2s refueled twice in the air.
Yes. So it's not just the bomb that they would have to buy. They would have to buy probably some planes to carry it, because it's not. I don't think a regular F-15 or F-22 can carry a bomb like that.
No. Ironically, they can carry nuclear bombs, which are much
Yes.
smaller. The
Right.
bunker buster is large by definition because it is designed to penetrate the earth and explode under the earth, well, under the surface of the earth,
Right.
and wreck whatever is down there. So yes, those are huge munitions. They weigh a great deal. They are very large, and they require a large aircraft.
And I guess the only one that I can think of would be a B-52 or the V-2 would be I mean, just the limited military knowledge.
Yes.
A B-52 might be able to carry one, because
They can carry the B-52s can carry them, and the B-2s can carry them, and maybe one other plane, but it is not carryable by most aircraft. It is just
right.
too huge a piece of equipment.
Right, and you also have to, I guess, make sure that you train people to deliver it, because the key is you got to deliver it to the right place. I mean,
Oh,
I
yes,
I suppose you had people inside that B-2 who were in charge of that. I mean, I know in the old World War II movies, there were people in the back who would, sort of be in charge of the bombs,
yes,
and in the old B-17 or B-29 movies that
yes.
from World War II.
Well, they
Um,
drop these. They drop these with incredible precision.
oh yeah,
I
oh
mean,
my
they
God.
dropped them from how many feet were they up there? About 18,000 feet, and they dropped them into uh, uh, air shafts that were like 24 inches wide, and of course those are guided munitions. They're guided by the aircraft with the guidance systems that we have on other weapons, but the guidance was absolutely precise.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Now, what about the Middle East itself? I mean, you briefly mentioned that the Middle East is important. Uh, I get the feeling that a lot of the Middle East was very happy to see that base destroyed, and that Iran, it doesn't really have a lot of friends in the Middle East, because I get the feeling that many of the Middle Eastern countries, while they're not in love with Israel, they don't want to be fighting anymore. They want to concentrate on their economies. Am I right on that, or
Absolutely. Iran is not popular in the Middle East.
no?
Iran is not a Middle Eastern country. Iran is actually an Asian country,
Mhm.
and while it is a Muslim country, I don't think that the Muslims in the Middle East feel any great need to be close to be close to Iran, because Iran is seen as an enemy country.
They're Persians, right? That's what they call
Yes.
themselves. And in fact, I had the experience one time of I was in a group, and there was a couple from Iran, and there happened to be a couple from I don't remember where, and the couple from the other country said to the couple from Iran, "Oh, you're Arabic," and they said, "No, no, no, we're Persians,"
Yes.
and they very clearly, said, "Hey, no, we're not them. We're different. We're Persians."
Yes.
And it really hit me at that moment just how different they are really than the Arabics.
Well, very much so. They're also very much further ahead in things like science. There are some Arab countries that are trying to move ahead in science, like Saudi Arabia, and with some success. But Iran is an old country and a country of seagoing people. But they have always been seagoing people. Persian culture is respected culture, but no, they're not from the Middle East.
Right, exactly, and they'll tell you. I mean, just
That's right. Yes.
mention to them that they're Arabic, they'll immediately, because I've seen that happen more than once. Well, one last topic that I want to get into, Bill, is your election there in New York City coming up in November. I still cannot believe that this guy, well, he might win. I guess I'll consider that. But what I'm
Yes.
saying is, what I cannot believe is why there aren't Democrats, serious Democrats, governors who want to be president, for example, like Shapiro, who I believe is Jewish American,
Yes.
even some others who are planning to run for president, would like to be president, who are not just saying, "Hey, not only am I not going to vote for him, but the Democrat Party should reject him completely. No serious Democrat should vote for this man." I mean, really take on a position similar to what the first President Bush took back in the early 90s when there was somebody in Louisiana who was nominated by the Republican Party who was a real racist, white supremacist guy who didn't mind telling you that he was. And President Bush said, "No, I'm not supporting him. He's not, that's not what the Republican Party is." And I'm surprised that there hasn't been a Democrat, Schumer, for example, whatever the governor's name is, always forget
Hochul.
that, Vogel,
Hochul.
or the other lady senator, frankly, who just come out and say, "We reject this. We're not voting for this," and the party support somebody like this. I'm
Well,
surprised that hasn't happened, Bill.
the attitude here in New York with the Democratic Party is, well, if he won, he will run as a Democrat from our party, but I have not yet endorsed him. That's the way they reacted. They said, I have not yet given him my endorsement, and they're going to try to wiggle around it in some way, but you can't wiggle around it. I mean, if he's the candidate for mayor, he's the candidate for mayor. He's not going to be suddenly the candidate for mayor of Tokyo.
Right.
It's mayor of New York, and the Republicans who are not skillful here in New York uh, 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 will have to try to handle him. Now, what is amazing, and you have said this before, is that this is an opportunity for Republicans that they very rarely get to have a Democratic candidate this controversial. They have a chance of electing a mayor. But to elect a mayor, you have to nominate a mayor, and you have to know where New York is. And so far, they have been critical of him nationally. That this is a horrible man, quoting him nationally. Look at what the Democratic Party has done in New York. What a horrible party! But within New York City itself, you see very little activity. This would be an opportunity for the Republicans to do what they have done before with Rudy Giuliani and others, and that is to win a mayoral election. But they don't have a strong candidate, and the candidate I mean, the candidate who wants to be the Republican candidate for mayor is a man out of the 1970s,
Right.
and very few people even know who he is.
Right.
They in a state with as much talent as New York, you would think there would be some star they could make into a mayoral candidate. They don't even seem to be trying.
I kept thinking Lee Zeldin, but maybe he's not in New York City.
Well, he is now in the president's cabinet as
No, I know that, but I kept thinking that he might be a good choice but I'm not sure if he physically. I know he was a representative, but I don't know whether it was in the area of New York City, state New York. I don't remember where he was
well,
from.
he was the Republican candidate for governor.
Yeah, but for
Uh,
governor is different because that's the whole
yes,
state. But what I'm saying
yes.
is, if you're going to be the candidate for mayor, aren't you supposed to have at least a connection to New York City?
Well, yes, and the connection can be very thin,
Oh,
but
okay.
yes, you have to you got to be something of a New Yorker.
Yeah, you got to you get a PO box address there in the post office,
That's right.
like Hillary Clinton did back whenever,
Yes.
and I think Bobby Kennedy did when he ran for the Senate. But anyway, it's just hard for me to believe that this man can be taken seriously by anybody.
Well, he's going to be taken very seriously, and he, with almost no opponent, how do you lose?
Well,
I
that's
mean,
it.
the party would have to literally tell its members, "Don't vote for this man, even though
Hmm.
he's our candidate." And they're not going to do that because he comes from a part of the party that unfortunately has become powerful beyond all reason, and
Right?
that is
They've got the energy. That's for
and
sure.
they have AOC who lives here and is a congresswoman from New York City, and she's going to be supporting him enthusiastically because that's what she is. She's a
That's right.
hard leftist. So
Well,
I don't. It's
yeah.
a crazy situation and a very dangerous one.
Oh, I believe it is. I believe it is, and I think it could have an impact on the Jewish American vote. I hope so.
Very well. I hope so too. If they wake up and realize that this is a dangerous situation, it's not a temporary aberration.
No, because this guy is not just somebody who hates billionaires and wants to have free grocery stores. I mean, if that's all he was, he'd just be a socialist.
Yeah.
But this is a guy who obviously hangs around with people who don't like Israel,
Oh,
and
very much.
and and he's not a friend. I don't know how he can be a friend to any Jewish American. Well, Bill, as always, thank you so much for your time. It's an absolute pleasure to touch base with you again. Even though it was, we did two shows here pretty quickly, but I wanted to get back
Yes.
on the Monday routine,
Yes.
and we'll sit back the rest of the week and touch base again next Monday and see what's going on. But I'm anxious to see what you were saying about this visit from the prime minister, because I think it's going to have consequences.
Oh, very much so. It's going to be a very newsworthy week.
I think so, and I think this is you don't come all the way from Tel Aviv just to have dinner with President Trump. I think there's a lot of stuff that is being discussed. Very
Look, BB is a world figure.
right.
May represent a tiny country, but it's been pointed out many times that Britain ran half the world from a little island.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, somebody said they may be a small country, but they have one heck of an army.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, can they do some damage if you go against them? But thank you so much as always for your time, Bill, and we'll catch up next Monday.
Looking forward to it, Silvio.
Thank you. Thank you very much as always. Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. I always enjoy chatting with him. Once a week, we call it the Week in Review, and there was a lot to review this week. Let me just leave you with a personal observation regarding what happened here in Texas. A lot of young people were lost over this. And it's very sad what happened. These young girls, these young people, lots of other people too. Very tragic. And to those who try to politicize this, shame on you. That's all I can tell you. Shame on you. This is not the moment to be doing stuff like that. So let's just think about these families, the young people, support them. That's what they need right now, and keep the politics out of it. We don't need politics at the moment. Thank you for listening. This is in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.